Morning everyone, Lucky Speaks. I thought I'd do a quick one. This is going to be actually work related for the first time ever. I think I'm actually going to do something. I did plan on doing some little tutorials maybe on things like mortgages and stuff, but just to explain, I'm a fully qualified mortgage advisor. I have all the qualifications. There are estate agents that use me over and above their own people because I'm a bit of a specialist and I can get the mortgages that many people can't get. Not by doing anything naughty or nefarious, obviously, but you know, I've been in business a long time, and I know that how criteria works and can make things happen. I can find solutions for people that maybe don't think they have a solution. Because generally, there's normally, unless you're actually bankrupt, there's normally a way of getting most mortgages, provided you're prepared to pay the premiums for them and satisfy the criteria. Anyway, when it comes to buy to let, there is a government scheme now where they're going to be taking on properties for 5 years and putting immigrants in there. Okay, that policy, whatever you think about it, that's the policy. So illegal immigrants moving from hotels into privately rented accommodation. That does cause a problem for buy-to-let landlords. I'm not sure that landlords realise that yet. I don't think the government have taken it into account. I think they're being a bit thick. Wouldn't surprise us because, let's face it, the person in charge of the government finances, Reeves, was the fully qualified tea lady for HBOS apparently. Didn't actually do any economics or any financial stuff from what I can tell. Worked for the complaints department. I've experienced the complaints department at HBOS, about as much use as a chocolate teapot. And you know, I had my heart attack and I rang HBOS. My mortgage was with HBOS. At the time I was doing 100 million a year in business with them. And I told them, I had a heart attack, but don't worry, got to pay the mortgage, but would you mind, whilst I'm waiting for me payout of the critical illness cover, would you mind awfully if I paid interest only? So instead of paying £3 a month, I paid £1,500 a month, just to so my savings last a bit longer, allow you to me to make the claim and get it through, because it could take a few weeks, it could take a few months. Oh no, they said, now you've told us you had a heart attack, you're clearly in danger of not paying, so if you miss any payments, we're going to leave them alone, and if you miss any payments, you're going to get repossessed. Really supportive, you know, that was fantastic. So I kind of basically told them to F off, and at the time paid the mortgage off. Anyway, by the by, so we have a problem with the law, because when you do a buy-to-let property, lenders are quite specific. They want, when they lend money on a property to rent out, they want it to be a short tenancies, 6 months, maybe a year at a push, but ordinarily they're expecting 6 months tenancies, because obviously they've got control over the tenants. If they ever repossessed it, they've only got the remainder of a 6 month tenancy to deal with before they can sell the property, that kind of thing. And they also are quite strict about the type of clients that they are going to have in these properties, not just for themselves, but for others around them, because what a lender's doing is taking on a risk of a property. They're lending you the money to say, buy the property. That's not a problem. But they've got to think, well, look, what happens if someone doesn't pay the mortgage? What are we going to do? Well, we're going to repossess it. We may have to let the property out for a little while, and we may need then to sell it. Now, one thing that's going to affect the value of that property is the local environment. And if the local environment is privately rented properties to working people, the area is generally more favourable to house prices. I say it delicately, you know, nobody with no money can help having to live how they live. But at the end of the day, a privately rented property, if it's surrounded by other privately rented properties, it's normally favourable. It's why a lot of lenders used to shy away from right to buys and things, because council houses, a big council estate, was not necessarily the place where a private property would look very good, in particular if they're trying to sell it. And that's what's going to affect these properties, because if you've got buy-to-let properties where all of a sudden 50% of the landlords in the area are renting to illegal migrants, who we have seen they live in slightly different ways, don't we? We know they like carrying their little, their utility belt of, weaponry to, chop up the local animals and stuff to eat them. And You tend to have a lot of fires in the street, and not unheard of to use the outside toilets in the actual most basic sense. Anyway, but the local area may suffer, in which case the value of your property you're buying now, you're asking them to mortgage, I don't know, 100 grand on property worth 150. It's a good prospect until that property suddenly is in an area where now it's only worth 100 or 120 because no one wants to move there. The only people who are going to buy the property off you is another landlord who's going to rent to migrants. They're going to want to maximise profits. They're going to push the prices down if they can get away with it. And so those lenders are taking on lending that is at risk. Therefore, if you already got a portfolio of a few properties and you give it all to the government without informing your mortgage lender, I think you're going to have a problem, because I think the lenders are going to require permission for you to do that and may well not grant it because they won't want to devalue the asset they hold. The lender doesn't care if you're 100 grand on a million or not. They want to protect whatever value's in it now, because that is their guarantee to get the money back. Because when they sell it at auction, the higher value it's worth, the more they're going to get, which means they're more guaranteed to pay off whatever debt you run up whilst you are in default. Because you're going to have interest charges, auction charges, administration charges. If they have to rent the property out on your behalf to collect the rents and pay the mortgage, they're going to charge you for that. You're not going to get it for nothing, you know. They're not a charity. This is a business proposition. This isn't your own home. This is actually a business, and they're entitled to charge commercial fees. Therefore, a bank wants to protect its values. So if you suddenly turn around and start hawking your properties out, and the local area becomes immigrant central, best will in the world, the lender's not going to like that. Those property values are going to drop. It's going to risk them getting their money back in the event of an auction. They could end up with a fire sale situation. I've seen them before, where you have, you know, the oversupply of flats in Leeds and Birmingham and Manchester back in 2008. I had clients that were able to buy whole blocks of sort of 10 flats for 100 grand. That were 100 grand a piece at one point. And the lenders on the original flats took a massive battering, and they're still chasing the money today that was not paid off by the sale of the original investment. Buy-to-let lending will be hit. Now, if it's hit that hard, lenders could decide either to pull out of it completely or put more onerous conditions on it. You know, maybe the rent coverage is going to have to be higher. There may have to be actual specific requirements not to let to particular groups, which could cause problems then with human rights and all this ECHR crap that comes out every so often, fucking us all up. I think it's dangerous, and I think as a landlord, you have a moral duty over the money sometimes. I agree that it's a business and that you have to make money. Everyone knows that. Everyone understands that, really. Even the people that sort of moan and say, oh, they shouldn't make so much money. Look, it's a business. These people got to make a living. You can't knock people for that. If they weren't out there putting their money to risk in an investment like that, then people wouldn't have somewhere to live. So no one argues they got to make some money. However, the draw of this situation may prove too tempting for some landlords. But if it damages the local economy, the local valuations, the local community, makes them less safe maybe, as is arguably happening in certain areas, then I think that there has to be another thought about this. This is not well thought through, typical of Labour. They just kind of say something and hope for the best. This is going to cause problems. The mortgage market itself is going to have problems from it. And of course it will impact, if lenders lose money, it will impact on people buying the house to live in, or your first time buyers, or your people who trying to downsize to get their retirement properties to let the new first time buyers buy houses. This is going to stagnate the market. This could cause problems. The lenders are going to lose money. Where do you think they're going to make their money from? It's not going to be from cheaper interest rates, is it? They're going to put your interest rates up. They're going to put your charges up. They're going to try their best to make their money back, because they ain't stupid. And they are a business. They have a duty to shareholders and make money. If they start losing money on one thing, they've got to make it somewhere else. This could cause a massive problem. I don't think anybody's really thought it through that far. The only things you see about it is the the bleeding hearts on the left saying, oh, isn't it lovely? Give the poor migrant a nice place to live. He's got to have a nice warm house. He deserves central heating more than you do. He comes from a hot country and it's a bit nippy here. And then you got on the right, you got the people sort of moaning about the fact that just Keir Starmer's a twat. Well, great, but the actual physical effect, the financial effect of this is going to be far-reaching, I believe. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I believe there will be. And if you have if you do just decide to give this property to the government, you've got a mortgage on it, you don't tell your mortgage lender and give them the opportunity to veto you, which is why people won't do it, but if the lender doesn't get the opportunity to veto you and later finds out that you're renting to government agencies, I think you're going to find that some of the clauses in the conditions of your mortgage are going to be broken by doing so. I can think of several already, which I'll research and do a proper video at some point. But there are certain clauses in your mortgage that you need to be aware that will preclude you from doing this kind of action. And it could cause you to have your house repossessed, which means you'll get no money out of it, which means they'll sell it for whatever they can get on the open market at that point in time. They'll throw it into the auction. So your house is worth 200,000 in an auction. If the area is suffering from a lot of illegal migrations coming in, well, that house may be worth 180, maybe worth 175. What if it's worth 150? You still got the same mortgage. The mortgage company doesn't say, oh well, look, because you've got less for the thing, we'll do a deal. We'll take less money. They take their full money. They take their charges. They take the auction fees. They take everything. Therefore, it's not unheard of for a 150 grand mortgage to turn into 180, 200,000 on repayment through an auction, through a repossession. So your house may sell for less than you owe, even if you think you've got 50 grand in it. You may end up still owing the mortgage company money. Even if you get away with it and don't owe any money, you're probably not going to see a lot back. If you invested 50 grand in a property, surely you want to have 50 grand back at least. So I think you're taking a chance. I think you could find yourself potentially in some legal issues. We need to look into it more carefully. I think lenders are going to take a strong stance on it. I don't think they're going to encourage it. They're going to try and nip this in the bud, because ill sort-out policy is it's the trademark of this current government, this Marxist lot of morons who just knee-jerk into every reaction whatsoever. Can't even decide what a woman is, let's face it, so they can hardly be trusted to run an economy. I've been in this business 30 odd years, and I used to be able to predict where interest rates were going at any time, and basically sit with the client and say, oh, this is because of this economic situation. Economic common sense says that this is the next thing they will do. That goes out the window, doesn't it? Now, I mean, you cannot predict what these lot of idiots are doing, and as a result, you can't predict what the mortgage market's going to do to counter it or to look to take care of themselves. Rates have gone up when I expect them to go down. They've gone down when I expect them to go up, and they've stayed the same when I expect something to happen. That's the sign that times have given up on trying to predict it. All we can do now is work with. I always say to people to just work with the reality of what we are today. Worry about today, and try and keep an eye on the future. Don't try and have more than 20% control of the future, because you probably ain't going to have it. Not like the old days. So something needs to be done. Something needs to be looked at. And if you're a prospective buy-to-let landlord, obviously if you want to give me a call, give me a call. We'll go through things, but take good advice. Not necessarily my advice. I'd like to think I'm good, but everybody has their own financial advisors. There's lots of good financial advisors out there. There's a lot of bad ones, but there's a lot of good ones out there. And it's probably these times are the most important times to take advice, even if you've traditionally gone without it. Maybe now you need to think about things that aren't completely obvious to the layman, and prepare yourself and make sure you're in control, because money's money, whether it's £100 or £100,000, is equally important to everyone. We don't earn it to throw it away. We earn it. It takes a lot to earn a living these days, and no one wants to lose money. And so, get some good advice. Go see your local guy. Talk to your friends. Who do they use? That kind of stuff. Just find the best professional for yourself. Get some good advice, and take into account these things. Have a look at the area you're buying in. Is it an area which is being targeted? Because there are areas being targeted by the Labour government for this particular type of thing. There's some areas they're not really looking at the moment. It doesn't say they won't, but at the moment they're concentrating on certain areas. As in the case of the landlord that I had this morning with 47 properties, the money he's going to get is 4.23 million from the government for those 47 properties. 90 grand per immigrant family, essentially. That is 90 grand over 5 years. We're going to pay for rent for each family on average. That's a lot of money. Think of the tax. Think of the wages you've got to earn to pay enough for a migrant family to live in one of these flats. I mean, an 18 grand tax bill for each migrant family just to pay their accommodation. That's not everything else, the council tax, everything else they get paid for, but just the rent itself to the landlord, that's going to be 18 grand. Well, I would imagine that's somewhere around 65,000-70,000 a year you've got to be earning to pay that in tax. You know, ignore national insurance, remember. Your tax is only 20%, you know, and then it goes up to 40% over the higher earnings limit. You've got to earn a lot of money to pay that much in tax. And that means that it's not necessarily one migrant family per person is being paid for. Probably taking 2 or 3 of us are working to pay enough tax to pay for one family to live there. Puts in perspective a bit. So yeah, like I say, take some good advice, be careful. I think there's some serious flack going to come for the mortgage providers, the mortgage market as a whole, and the property market as a whole. I don't think it's going to work out. I think you're going to have to think twice. My answer really is probably just buy them a new dinghy and help them to be repatriated to a country where they do have some spare housing. They've got some spare office blocks completely empty they can turn into flats or something, because we haven't got it here. Britain's a very small place, and one thing that they're not making anymore is the land. Okay, we're on an island. They ain't making any more land. We haven't got many places to build, and so we really should be looking after every bit of land we've got and making sure it is, first off, it has to be for the benefit of the people that are actually legitimately here. That's not a racist thing. It's not a terrible thing to say. It's not this far right bullshit thing they come out with. It's straightforward. You know, we've got an island with people who already live in here. Those people, we've got to be okay first, regardless of anybody else. You can only have a care for the rest of the world if your own people are happy and contented and looked after, and we ain't. So sort ourselves out anyway. Not sure how this comes across, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Like, share and subscribe if you can, or give me some tips on whatever I'm doing wrong, because I'm probably doing a lot wrong. Thanks very much. Bye.